Hi, we're going to walk through just starting the link strand class. As a reminder, the link strand class is explained in some detail in terms of constructors and initialize, and then more details in the assignment write-up. I'm going to take care to use this. I'm going to copy it because I'm going to be pasting it soon into my link strand class. So what do? I'm going to go into Eclipse, come to my project, and I say I want a new link strand class. When this pops up, I get to say link strand, and here I can specify that I want to add an interface. So I'm going to add an interface. I'm going to type in iDNA strand. That's the one I want. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to finish. And now I have link strand with all the methods that I'm supposed to have with an @ override. And you can see that I have stubs, meaning none of them are correct. They're all just return null, return 0, return 0, return 0. So I'm going to have to add to these. And in order to do that, I'm going to need to understand what the assignment says. And what it says is, I should start with the following definitions for a private inner class, as well as instance variables. So as I mentioned, I'm going to copy this, paste it into Eclipse as instance variables. Now I have a class node, that's an inner class. I'm going to select all of this and correct my indentation. Now it's the job of the constructors and all the methods to make sure that the invariants are maintained. Those invariants are explained here. My first reference is the first node. My last reference is the last node. My size represents the total number of characters, and my appends is the total number of times that the append method is called. Four invariants. When I come here, I realize I don't have any constructors. So I'm going to need some constructors, and I'm going to look here to see what it says. Here, the description says, where do I find what those constructors are? I'm going to scroll through looking for it. Implementing toString, reversed, char at, more details, implementation of char at. Somewhere it must tell me about the constructors. Completing the project assignment, maybe it tells me that at the very beginning. Constructors and initialize. Initially. You must create two constructors. The no argument, called the default constructor, should have one line, which calls the other constructor with a string parameter. All right, I found it. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, all right, I need two constructors. No argument constructor and one with a string parameter. It specifically says that the no argument constructor should consist of one line. This calls the constructor here. All this constructor is going to do is call initialize. And if I could type, I would do that quickly. The initialize method is down here, and it tells me that right here. The string constructor should consist of one call to initialize, which maintains the class invariant with a single node representing the entire strand of DNA. So, a single node. And I know that one of the invariants is that my first points at the first node. So I've created a node. My first points to it. This doesn't like it. It says link node is not defined. Is it not called node? Oh, it just has a string parameter. There's no node with a next parameter. So I leave that off. It says my last points at the first node, or the last node, but in this case it's the same. My appends, well, I haven't called appends at all, so that has to be 0. And my length is the length of the entire strand, which in this case is the length of the source. There's my invariant. Apparently there's no my length. I'm guessing it must be my size. Sure enough. If I try to call test strand and run it, I will see that it passes all tests. Now that can't possibly be right because I've only written one method. Oh yes, this uses string builder strand. So if I make the change so that it's using a link strand and run it again, I will see that all my tests have failed. Every single test fails. Test size, test this, Check if size returns the correct value for base cases. Expected 7, but was 0. So size doesn't even work. Why could that be? Well, if we look here and look at the size method, we'll see it returns 0. No wonder. I need to change this simply to return my size and run the tests again. I'm extremely happy. One method passed, test size. None of my other methods passed, but I'm making progress, and it's all about making progress. As a reminder, what did I do? I added a node class, that's an inner class. I added first and last, which point to the first and last nodes respectively of my inner list. My size maintains the size, the number of CGs, A's, and T's, and my appends maintains the number of times append was called. That's a good first start. I'm ready to make the next step.